One of Naruto's greatest strengths as a series is its iconic broken hero type villains. Characters such as Obito, Madara, and Pain that have tragic backstories you can genuinely feel bad for, with understandable motivations and goals that some people even agree with. However, one villain, although often forgotten in these discussions, stands aside from the rest as a great villain but for completely different reasons. That antagonist is Orochimaru. Instead of standing out as a character we can relate to, Orochimaru's appeal, particularly in part 1, stemmed from the raw fear he provoked in every single person who saw him. Although a scary, sadistic villain is an extremely common trope, Naruto is able to put a spin on this trope that makes Orochimaru still feel incredibly original and iconic. From the very first moment Orochimaru makes an appearance, we don't get the blatant understanding he's a villain, but he's clearly someone that's potentially dangerous, as Anko's run-in with him just before the Forest of Death already makes him seem creepy, while simultaneously making him seem more powerful than he lets on, since unlike the other genin she clearly looks down on, Anko doesn't treat this disguised Orochimaru with the same lack of care, but actually acts as if he may be a serious threat to her. This automatically sets him apart as a mysterious and potentially problematic presence before Orochimaru even does anything noteworthy in the story. This sets the perfect tone for his first major splash in the story, when he ambushes Team 7 in the Forest of Death. From the very moment Orochimaru clashed with the three genin, it became painfully clear they weren't even in the same ballpark at all, as he effortlessly launched Naruto out of the battle with a wind-style jutsu on a scale only touched by the most elite shinobi at this point in the series, such as Kakashi and Zabuza. After this epic display of strength, Orochimaru proceeded to demonstrate more of his bloodlust just by simply staring daggers at his opponents, which terrified Sasuke and Sakura to such a great extent they literally could not move, and Sasuke is only able to break out of this sort of fear paralysis by literally injuring himself. This moment created such an intense sensation of horror by demonstrating directly from Sasuke's point of view the fear he felt, which was so great not only could he not move at all, but he couldn't even get his mind off of visions of himself being brutally mutilated at Orochimaru's own hands. The psychological effects Sasuke experienced just by facing Orochimaru had nearly identical effects to an actual genjutsu, even though this came merely from Orochimaru's raw aura. He didn't even stop at fear stunning them. After desperately breaking away, Sasuke was immediately flung into fighting for his life from an Orochimaru who's clearly not even trying, and yet pushing his prey to the absolute limit. The fact that makes him even more sinister is that Orochimaru not just offing Sasuke right there demonstrates to the audience indirectly that his intentions were far beyond the scope of this standard examination, but something unknown and unpredictable to the audience and to Sasuke himself. Pushing someone like Sasuke to his limits so casually already makes Orochimaru seem like a pretty big threat on his own. But what really cements this threat into being is how he handles the Nine Tails. At this point in the story, Naruto's Nine Tails mode is treated like his unstoppable get out of jail free card. But Orochimaru's presence here completely breaks that expectation. He just takes one look at Naruto, nonchalantly acknowledges his Nine Tails as a potential problem, and proceeds to stop and seal away the transformation with ease, completely stripping away any sense of safety the audience might have felt before when witnessing Naruto's QB influence transformation. He finishes off this display of complete dominance by getting half his face melted off and not even being injured, and then proceeding to brand Sasuke with his curse mark by biting him on the neck like a snake. He doesn't even stop here. Orochimaru continues his streak of terror by scaring Anko so bad she was going to use a self-sacrificing jutsu to take him down, that she realized midway through would fail on him and she would just be sacrificing her life in vain, at which point he just casually snuck into the next stage of the Chunin exams in front of the Hokage and several Jonin without getting caught, and then proceeds to fear hacks Kakashi of all people, another safety blanket for Team 7, who then admits without hesitation at all that if they'd actually fought he would not have survived. On top of all this, it's later revealed in a conversation between Anko and Hiruzen himself that he might not be able to take down Orochimaru, with both of them agreeing that only the 4th Hokage could have definitely pulled it off. All this hype for Orochimaru immediately following his introduction gives the audience a first impression of a terrifying, borderline unstoppable menace with psychotic tendencies that removes any sense of safety the story previously created. After crafting such an impressive show of Orochimaru's legitimacy as a threat, Naruto's story does an amazing job characterizing Orochimaru as an intriguing person as well, without taking from his aura or making him bland. During his battle against Hiruzen, Orochimaru takes the time to reveal the secret behind his creepy extra faces while simultaneously revealing his goal, that being stealing bodies for reincarnation so he can live long enough to learn all jutsu in the world. This goal sets Orochimaru apart as a villain with a unique goal that kept true to his sadistic nature without making him like any other generic sadistic villain that just likes to make people suffer for the sake of it. Characterized as a albeit insane intellectual, driven by a very relatable trait, curiosity, but with a complete lack of normal moral boundaries. It's clear, even with his morally detached personality, Orochimaru is still a complex character with feelings outside of this characteristic, as when he first attacked Hiruzen, he actually stabbed himself to not cry because the idea of killing his old teacher very surprisingly shook him up despite his hard exterior. His anguish doesn't even end at that. For the majority of the fight, Orochimaru doesn't even directly fight Hiruzen himself, but sends his reanimations to do so in his stead. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even really join the fight again until after Hiruzen sealed away both of his reanimations, and at that point he has no choice. It's either fight or get his soul pulled out by Hiruzen himself. This implies he still had an unresolved sense of care for Hiruzen even after outwardly regaining his composure earlier in the fight. With all this in mind, it's probably safe to say Orochimaru sending Hiruzen's own teachers to fight him messing with his feelings was really just his own way of projecting his feelings onto Hiruzen, so that way he wouldn't have to face his own conflicting emotions. After Orochimaru's softer, more human side was demonstrated to us, the story still continues to remind us for every bit of human Orochimaru has in him, he still has 5 parts monster to match it. Although he didn't play much of an active role in this arc, Orochimaru's sick and twisted desire to steal Sasuke's body and Sharingan drove the Sasuke retrieval arc. In a cold, calculated move, Orochimaru sent his subordinates to take Sasuke to him when most Chunin and Jonin had already left the village, forcing Tsunade to send a team of mostly Genin to get him back. The really crazy thing most people tend to forget is that Orochimaru had every intention of stealing Sasuke's body as soon as they met up. All of Orochimaru's promises of power were a complete lie. He's so sadistic, he was willing to lure a desperate, traumatized 13-year-old and essentially kill him without even making good on his promise to make him stronger beyond just giving him a very short-lived curse mark. The only thing that actually stopped Orochimaru is that his body expired before he could steal Sasuke's. And because of that, he had to wait another 3 years before he could take Sasuke's body. Had Sasuke gotten to him slightly faster, the entire series would have gone on without our favorite emo Uchiha. Another thing that's really crazy is that Orochimaru remains terrifying, fear-hexing people despite being literally armless. While I can't say Orochimaru did a great job maintaining his intimidating aura after the time skip, he kept a great job keeping it going through the end of part 1. Overall, Kishimoto was able to give us a terrifying, interesting villain, but at the same time make him just human enough to not be a basic one-dimensional character. And what's even better is he did all this without compromising on his monstrous nature at all. Ultimately, he serves as someone we can root against, but at the same time genuinely believe as a character and understand. He may be among the ranks of classic anime villains, but that doesn't make him generic, and he certainly wasn't carried by nostalgia. Rather, Orochimaru is a perfect example for all writers to introduce a timeless original villain into any story.